Welcome to Coach's Corner, everybody. Thanks for watching the show. This is, of course, four-wheel drive show on Coach's Corner, and we have special guests. I'm your host, Coach Tripp. We have my former teammate at Liverpool High School down below me, Billy Pendock. Billy, can you hear us okay?
I got you now.
All right.
Oh,
Just in time for the show.
My hero.
Holy macaroni, spaghetti, and pasta vazzola. To my left is Blaze Winner, 12-year NFL vet.
Where's he?
Where is he?
That's a handsome guy right there.
Golly, man. Holy cow. Oh, my God. That's almost like the U here. Was that
Frame
the
it
U?
up, baby. Frame it up.
Oh, my gosh. Folks, here on Coach's Corner, we try to inspire and educate the mind to think, the heart to feel, and the body to act. Coming up on Four-Wheel Drive, today's episode is the value of football. Okay? The true values of football are actually the values in football. Okay? And we're going to stop after a couple of these and then discuss. Guys, football is hard. It's tough. It's not easy, but it builds character. You know, out there in the field, it's hot, you're tired, you're sore. Football asks a young man to push himself further than he ever thought possible. Football is often uncomfortable. Playing for something bigger than yourself, however, and for others requires accountability. Football teaches you teamwork and how to work with others for the achievement of a common goal. When they get a career someday, their boss is going to want an employee who can contribute, communicate, work well with others, and have a certain goal. They will want an employee who will consistently be at his best. Now, I'm often asked, why do you pay so much money for your son to play football? And my answer has always been, I don't pay for my son to play. Instead, I pay for moments my son wants to quit, but determination keeps him going. I pay for days when my son is too tired to go train, but is driven by commitment to go anyway. A man is not finished when he is defeated. He is finished when he quits. Time management skills. I pay for my son to have those when he sees he has to balance school, homework, practice, friends, and family. I pay for my son for the strength that he finds as he fights through the pain, giving his best effort despite present limitations. There's a big difference between wanting to and willing to. A lot of people want to. Only certain people are willing to pay the price in preparation to prepare for their performance. Guys, Billy, I know you got two girls. Blazer, you had two boys. The reasons you play football and have them play are for the values they receive when they play football. Talk a little bit about the values, Blazer.
Go ahead, Billy. You start.
Billy, you start 9/11. I know you. Let's talk about 9/11 first. And I know, Billy, you lost fellow friends of yours, New York City cops and firemen. As we salute all those guys, your friends too, that lost their lives. Talk a little bit about what 9/11 means to you, brother.
Well, I'll tell you, every year at this time is it's a tough day for me, because I do think about what went on at 8:45 on that day 23 years ago. It kind of changed the way I had an outlook. I was working as a police officer at the time, and when it happened, and no one really knew what was going to take place and where it was going to happen. And the first thing I thought of was my family and where were they going to strike next. And it was very, very scary. And I'll tell you, and I always tried to look at people as just a person. And up to that day and the weeks following, I got to admit, the racial profiling, the stuff I went through, just not knowing what was going to happen next, and that something like that could happen and affect all of us. And I know some people it affected different ways, but I lost several of friends of mine, and it was hard. And I spoke with the families. I was close to a lot of NYPD guys, and very difficult not to be angry with people that didn't fit the profile that I thought they should fit. And it's a day of, when I wake up in the morning, I do think of those 2,000 names, and I think of each one. And after the sadness, I do feel anger. And the way the country is going now, it could happen anywhere at any time again. And I really don't think, mothers, sons, sisters, and brothers should have to worry about going through this, So, but again, we all have different stories where we were at the time.
Yeah.
And I don't know, you guys can talk a little more about that, but it means a lot to me every year at this time. It's very, very emotional time for me.
We all remember where I was. I was bringing my daughter to school on the radio as going, and then going to work after that. I remember exactly where I was. Blaze, where were you? And what do you remember?
What I want to say is that, everybody, almost everybody I ran into said, we can't forget this day. We can't forget this day. And if you look at what happened from that event, for a short time afterwards, there seemed to be, and I lived in New York, I grew up there, there seemed to be a little bit more patience with an officer, a little bit more respect for a firefighter, a little bit more kindness toward the other person. We realized that life was very fragile. You could be gone in an instant. You could live your day today and take it for granted if you want, but life is so precious. I mean, you saw people jumping off a building to try to save their life from hundreds of feet above ground. You can't fathom what was going through their being and their love for family. You heard phone calls. You felt pain. You felt emotion stirred. We were supposed to never forget that day. We were supposed to never forget that day because it would bring people together. And it's really appalling to see the amount of divide, the amount of hate, the amount of dislike, the amount of reasons why we should not. I mean, we're going to transition into football and why we play football. And for God's sakes, on this day, man, why don't we just pause, turn to somebody that is black, white, yellow, green, male, female, and just realize what God gave us.
Right.
And be thankful for the air that we breathe. And Billy, I feel for you, brother. I know you
Sorry
and I
about your friend.
Beautiful phone calls. And I mean, let's not forget. I mean, let's not let the TV have to remind us of what happened on 9/11. I mean, this is a day to really celebrate the fact that we have life and we have so many blessings rather than problems.
Right. Absolutely. Way to say it. In the name of the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit, we say to all those guys and your buddies too, Billy. Courage. Matter of fact, the next sentence in the value of football is courage. And there's uncommon valor and uncommon courage that came out of 9/11. We saw it and we heard it and we witnessed it. In the values of football, I pay for my son to have courage. Courage when he approaches obstacles as challenges to overcome, not excuses to avoid. Courage is resistance to fear, mastery of fear. It's not absence of fear. Responsibility. I pay for my son to have responsibility instilled by learning to take care of his body and equipment. I pay for my son to develop mental toughness by overcoming adversity after making a mistake or getting a bad break. Mental toughness enables him to ignore the minor hurts, the opponent's pressure, and the temporary failures. Physical toughness will make an opponent weaken, but mental toughness will make them crack. I pay for my son to learn to be a good teammate, how to work with others and communicate for the common goal. I pay for my son embracing accountability, which requires everyone to do a specific job at the same time and every specific play. I pay for my son to learn to handle disappointment, be gracious in defeat, and be humble in success. When a man sings his own praises, he always gets the wrong pitch. I pay for my son to respect his teammates, coaches, officials, and opposing players and coaches. I pay for the discipline he learns while hundreds of hours of training, practice, and work ethic it takes to create a champion. The goal is to create a habit that can be reproduced instinctively under pressure time and time again. I pay for the realization my son that has success must be earned over time by preparing properly. It doesn't happen overnight. You can't build Rome in a day. A goal without a plan is called a wish. I pay for my son to be proud of the small achievements and learn that long-term goals are work in progress. Motivation is when your dreams put on workflows, folks. You have to have action along with your dreams. And I pay for my son for the opportunity to develop lifelong friendships like we have with each other that create long-lasting memories. And finally, I pay for my son to trust. I pay for him. The trusting is a higher nature. Doubting is a lower instinct. The latter is easy to do. The former is more difficult, but so much more rewarding. That's right. I pay for the opportunities that football provide my son to develop these attributes that serve him well throughout his life. And that, my friend, is a great investment. Now it's time for Bible verse of the week. This comes from Galatians chapter 6, verse 9. And let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. Yeah, those are serious lessons to be learned, right, by football. Huh, Blazer?
Yeah, well, I always reflect on my own life. I'm the master of my own life. So before I tell anybody what to do, I reflect upon my own existence. I stepped on a football field because my mother encouraged me to find out more about myself.
Yes.
My mother is the one who opened the door, and I told her, I hate you. And she said, I'll be here when you're done. And she smiled at me and said, find out what you're made of. Remember, I was born with a hole in my face. I wasn't able to speak. So football field, I admired the players from the TV screen. I wanted to be like them, but I felt there's no way I could ever be like those people. Wow. Well, my mom is the one who brought me up to the field and said to me, what did you find out? And a coach greeted me at the side of the car door and said, come on, man, you're going to get your uniform. And to me, when I look at football, I look at it as a place for young people to establish personal momentum, to establish an understanding of what it takes to be great at something. And that something was football. It could be anything. To be great at anything, you have to take the first step. You have to bear down. You have to sweat and bleed and cry and be emotional and passionate over it. I saw it from my coaches. I saw it from my teammates. And when I landed at Syracuse, it was an extension of that at a larger degree. Now I realize that the competition level went up just like it does in life. The competition went up, and I found unity in belief from Billy Pendock, from Jamie Kimmel, from Tim Green. I found unity, but the principles were built at a youthful level. By the way, it wasn't about politics when I first stepped on the field. It wasn't about politics when I played in high school. It wasn't even about politics in college. Now, the pro's a different game. That is a different game. But the game itself is not about politics.
Right.
It is about a pureness in finding out what you need to do to be the very best to add to this team and this community.
Billy, you want to expound?
Yeah, when we talk about values, and I mean, this is very key, and Blaze makes some great points, and I agree with everything. Growing up, I grew up in a family, my mother and father, neither of them graduated high school. So my father went to 7th or 8th grade, my mother went to 9th or 10th, and football, I didn't come from a football family. I didn't come from, an really educated family, other than the values that were bestowed upon me were determination, hard work, and do what, if you're going to do something, do it to the best you can or don't do it, and like we talked about before, and Paula, this story. I don't know if Blaze does. I was at my freshman, sophomore year. I was thinking of quitting school early and going on the road as a truck driver until George O'Leary found me, and said, here's the weight room. Let me put you in there and lock the door behind you, and that was kind of my education and my first experience with football. But when you talk about values, let's get back to this. You talk about my number one thing, and when I coach kids and when I learned football, for me, it was about life lessons. It was about taking things from playing and using them when you became an adult and you got a job. And everybody had to go. Not many of us went on to the NFL and could make a career out of just the NFL football, announcing or what have you. But you had to go to work, 95, 98, maybe 99% of the guys had to go to work for a living. And right. When you went, when you got up in the morning at 6 o'clock and you had to be at work at 7:30, 8 o'clock, and you had to be on time, you had to be accountable for what you did. You look back at the lessons that some of us that were lucky enough to have great coaches that taught us these lessons. Now, there are a lot of kids out there that didn't have the opportunity that the three of us had.
Right.
I mean, the coaches that we had, if you think about the values that were instilled in us as we moved on through high school, college, and then on maybe to the NFL, maybe to work. But those values are vital. And I've said this before on the show, I still have kids, I call them kids, they're in their 30s and 40s now, come and see me and say, Coach, forget about the wins and losses. That doesn't mean nothing. The stuff you taught us was things that we take for everyday life. Why I have 2 or 3 great kids, why I have a great relationship with my wife, right. Why I'm successful at my job, whether it be sweeping the floor or managing a top tier company. It's those values that were instilled upon us by great coaches that understood that. Now, again, I'm not going to get into politics and all this stuff with NIL and everything going on now, but you're teaching these kids the wrong values now. And before you know it, this NIL system is going to start filtering down to high schools, and you're not giving these kids what they need to have integrity and to have understanding for a handshake and looking a man in the eye. I can tell you, the 4 of us, you talk about 4-wheel drive, Timmy, me, Blaze, Jamie. And I can tell you for sure, I was close with Blaze. I was close with Jamie. Not so much with Timmy. I played with Timmy. We hung out very little. But I can tell you this about Blaze Winter. Blaze Winter shake your hand and look you in the eye. And where did that come from? That didn't come from, geez, the guy's a great guy. That came from great coaches, and maybe throughout high school. I know damn well through college, he was taught them things. Now, that means more to me than any kind of money anybody can hand me. And right. I wasn't in that for making millions of dollars. That wasn't my thing. And I don't think it was Blaze's, Jamie's. I can't speak for Timmy, but I can almost, I became so close with Blaze and Jamie that those two guys, it was about looking in the eyes of each other, and those values that were impacted on us went on for all through college and for some of us through the pros. But that was an important time of our life.
Yeah, the values, but the money doesn't matter. It's relationships that matter. Okay, money doesn't buy life. If you want to get into that a little bit more, watch the show from Monday night on my Good and Faithful Servant show with Kerry Good, who has ALS, just like four-wheel drive member Timmy Green has Lou Gehrig's disease. So those guys have been in touch, and those guys have like a fraternity. But yeah, this is four-wheel drive.
Let me interrupt you for 1 minute.
Okay.
We all played a lot of football, and I'm talking to four of us. Timmy's problems, me, Blaze, Jamie. Jamie's kind of on the outside. Jamie's kind of, and I'm not going to speak for Jamie, but he's kind of that quiet. Don't really want, and he wants his close family around him. But I can tell you this, and I have issues. We have issues with CTE. We have issues going on with different things. The minute I call that man to your left, Blaze Winter, no matter where he is, that man will come here and that man will stop what he's doing. I know that for a fact. He is my brother. Jamie's my brother, and Timmy's my brother. Yep. If I call any of those three guys, I know they got my back. So
absolutely, when you
talk about values, go back to things of values. This day and age, these kids are it's my, I, it's not we, and for another guy anymore. That's the biggest change in what's going on now.
Well, that's why I agree with you, Billy, 100%. That's why it's so critical to understand who might be in that power position as a coach. I mean, are you hiring an X and O's guy that has no understanding of the foundation of football, or are you hiring a foundation guy that will stay true to the fundamentals and the things that we're talking about?
Right.
This is what's under attack today. Are we focused on uniting and having players and parents understand the power of support, or are we saying, "Hey, man, you're the running back. You're going to Ohio State, and you know what? I need you to win the game for me, so I look good in the community." I mean, whoever's in that power position has to be able to honestly assemble for the right reasons. O'Leary was a master at assembling for the right reasons. I don't remember him as a man who needed to have a lot of media attention. I mean, what I remember is a man who could not stand addressing the media. He had to, because that's the power of a head coach, especially at college. But he was a man who assembled people, reminded them of the simple things, and he was the man in charge, and he would not compromise those standards, those beliefs for any reason. So will the players do that automatically? No, they're young. They're immature, especially youth in high school. You need to have somebody in the right position reminding them of the foundation of football, why we're doing it. And we're doing it for building relationships. We're doing it to understand sacrifice, understand a trip, what you said earlier, courage, and how to get through hard times, how to be our brother's keeper. All these things that are indirectly found in the Bible.
Right.
It's what football gives us, the ability to extend that relationship with God Almighty. And I mean, when people mix that up, it becomes a very selfish, very dangerous sport that really I've seen down the road pushes the weak guy aside. If I entered Syracuse University as the weak guy compared to Tim, Jamie, and Billy, and I was, Billy would be truthful, the non-athlete, the guy who was feeling inferior, I would never have made it without the accompaniment of Billy, especially. Yeah. Jamie and Tim.
Yeah.
They brought me to their level because they found time to remind me that, hey, you have it in you. They reminded me of the little things that I needed to do in the weight room. Billy was a master as telling me, hey, you got to try this. Stop doing that. He would put me in the right hands. He would be my guardian angel indirectly in my day-to-day life. And that is what we need from the kids that play football in any community in this world. They have to understand the foundation.
Right. Well, let me finish up and surmise a couple points you guys made. Teammates found value in you guys. Each of your teammates found value in yourselves, and that helped you become, I think, more self-aware, more self-reflection, more self-analysis. Blaze, you talked about that. That is critical for somebody to get better instead of blaming and pointing fingers and not taking accountability.
Hey, Trip,
okay?
let me say one other thing. Football is also a great way to divide people. If you're fake, football will divide you. It will crush you if you try to be nothing but words and no action. You're going to be what? You're going to be pressured out by the mass. And it's one of the greatest places on earth that, well, I'm entitled to it. No, you're not. You're not entitled to play football just because you put the helmet and shoulder pads on.
Well, Coach Bryant called it weed out the weak ones. That's what Coach Bryant would do. He would test your ass in practice because he wanted to know before we got to the game whether you were going to suck it up in the fourth quarter and find something deep down inside you, used to say, and dig it up. Self-awareness is your engine. That's Dougie Baldwin, a wide receiver from Gulf Breeze High School here on the golf course, went to Stanford University, became a great wide receiver, the Seattle Seahawks. He said, self-awareness was my engine. Amen. That's what he said. Now, people that can't do that are losers, are weak, and have no courage. And we as coaches and as parents must instill these kind of characteristics.
What do we do, Billy? What do we do with those people that were weak? We confronted them.
Yeah.
Confront them. When Doug Marrone quit, we confronted him with man up. Right. Get it going. You have the ability. Get it going. And if it goes out to Doug Marrone as, oh, well, you're making me look bad. Sorry, buddy. You were making yourself look bad by the behavior you had when you were playing on the football field at Syracuse when you first arrived. And you were a big, talented dude, just like Mike Charles was. And it took other people to get Mike Charles to what? Realize, man, you're a freak. What are you doing, man? Get this thing done right.
Right. Yeah. Good point, guys. Hey, great show as always. Appreciate you guys. I love you guys so much, man. Thanks for being on Four Wheel Drive. We got, I got a busy week coming up. We're going to do best of, I think, next week. But hey, guys, stay safe. Peace out. Thanks for joining the show, guys.
Love you, Blaze. Paulie, I'll talk to you.
Say a prayer for those 9/11 the survivors and the ones that passed. They really, we have to pause and remember one another for all the right reasons that God put us on this earth for.
Amen, brother. This show is dedicated to your buddies, Billy, that you lost in New York City that day 23 years ago. Have a great one, guys. We'll see y'all soon.
Love you guys. Love you,
Billy. Guys. So long. Bye. Wow, another great episode of Four Wheel Drive. Stay tuned for these great messages, folks. Without this just wouldn't be possible. If you like the show, hey, like it, share it with somebody, and search my YouTube channel. Appreciate you guys. Have a great sports night, everybody. We will talk to you soon.
There's a reason why Hill Kelly in Pensacola is the #1 selling Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram dealer between Jacksonville and New Orleans. While other dealers have taken advantage of a competitive market with higher prices, Hill Kelly has discounted prices to the lowest of the year. And Hill Kelly in Pensacola won't surprise you with excessive charges beyond the selling price. Come see why people from Milton, Pace, Foley, Bay Minette, Daphne, Gulf Shores, Mobile, and beyond are driving to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to buy their next select new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram. At Hill Kelly, the bottom line price and your satisfaction are what really matter. So before you sign, check the bottom line and make the trip to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to see what true local ownership can do for you. At Hill Kelly Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Highway 29 in Car City, Pensacola. Or shop online 24/7 at hillkellydodge.com. When it comes to bottom line pricing, nobody beats a Hill Kelly deal. Nobody.
75 years of service and high tech today. It's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348. High tech is a term often applied to advanced services and products in today's marketplace. And today, glass is much more than a simple pane of brittle, see-through stuff we hit baseballs through when we were kids. Glass is now a product with unique flexibility in both performance and application. And Pensacola Glass Company is growing right along. That's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348.
Are you riding around in a filthy vehicle? Dirty car no more. Visit Ronnie's Car Wash today to get it shining in no time. They have 3 convenient locations with another coming soon. The unlimited monthly wash packages start as low as $14.95 per month with free vacuums, multi-purpose spray and towels. Visit them in Gulf Breeze, Navarre, Fort Walton, and soon Crestview. Don't wait, wash today. Be sure to see Ronnie's Car Wash on Facebook to see the latest specials and discounts. You'll be riding and shining in no time.
That's you trying to fix the plumbing yourself to save a few bucks. Doing things yourself doesn't always end well. The same goes for insurance. That's why Auto Owners works with local independent agents who tailor coverage to meet your needs and offer discounts for life, home, car, and business insurance. Because sometimes you need a professional to get the job done right. That's simple human sense.
Drive a little to save a lot on 170 Buicks and GMCs at Step 1 Buick GMC. Get savings up to $4,000 on new Buick Encores, $9,450 on new Buick Envisions, $7,000 on new GMC Yukon XLs, or up to $15,345 off on new Sierras. Only at Step 1 Buick GMC, Pensacola.
Plus tax, tag, title, license, dealer processing fee expires 7/31/24 on select new 24 in-stock models. Discount off MSRP includes all incentives.
My name is Steve Reynolds. I'm the manager and owner of Cordova Lanes, and we help keep your mind out of the gutter. Cordova Lanes is part of the community of Pensacola. Being here for 43 years, we've entertained more people than any other bowling center in the city. We self-fund for a living. Cordova Lanes is located at 2111 Airport Boulevard in Pensacola, behind Cordova Mall. Come on out and see us at Cordova Lanes Bowling Center. Thank you.